They smiled at you while whispering your downfall. They praised your light while building altars to your failure. You thought envy came with warning signs, slammed doors, raised voices, betrayal written in obvious letters. But it doesn't. It comes dressed as affection, disguised as loyalty. It's quiet, it's patient, it watches you rise, memorizing every step so it can pull the ground out from beneath your feet. And when it finally does, it's not with violence, it's with precision. You never see it coming until you're already on your knees, trying to understand why the hands that once clapped for you are the same ones now tightening the rope around your neck. They sent black magic, but it wasn't supernatural. It was psychological. The curse wasn't in candles or chants. It was in conversations, expectations, fake apology. They drained your confidence with compliments, disarmed your ambition with guilt, and made you believe that your strength was arrogant. You began shrinking yourself to fit their comfort. You softened your voice so their insecurities could sleep. You let them rewrite your story until you no longer recognized the person living it. You called it peace. It was possession. They wanted your silence, not because they loved your calm, but because your words were dangerous. You could see through them, and that terrified them. So they painted your awareness as paranoia, your independence as rebellion. They made you question your own instincts until doubt became your default setting. And that's how black magic works. It doesn't destroy you directly. It convinces you to destroy yourself. It plants seeds of hesitation and waters them with false kindness. And one day, you wake up realizing you haven't fought back in years. You've been surviving on permission, but something in you shifts. Maybe it's the final betrayal, the moment they go too far and you stop bleeding long enough to notice that the wound isn't new. Maybe it's the silence after the storm when the air feels heavy but clean. You start seeing faces for what they are, masks, words for what they mean, weapons. You realize the war was never outside. It's been inside your mind all along. And for the first time, you feel the pulse of something ancient moving beneath your skin. A dark, sharp energy that doesn't want revenge. It wants resurrection. You stop explaining. You stop begging for fairness. You stop waiting for apologies that were never coming. The moment you withdraw your energy, everything shifts. They sense it. The smiles fade. The room changes temperature. They realize their spells don't work on you anymore. Because you've learned something they can't understand. Power is not in fighting louder. It's in standing still while they unravel. Your silence becomes a mirror, forcing them to face their own rot. Your restraint becomes their confusion. You become unpredictable, unreachable. The weak call it coldness, the wise call it control. That's when they panic, because they didn't expect you to alchemize the poison. They didn't think you'd turn their black magic into armor. The same hands that tried to bury you now tremble in the presence of what you've become. They look for the person they once manipulated and find a shadow that doesn't blink. The curse reversed itself. Every lie, every humiliation, every whispered word, they forged you. You're no longer afraid of the dark because you've learned to see through it. They sent black magic. You sent it back twice as strong, not with rage, but with silence. Not with spells, but with evolution. The war ended the moment you stopped needing their understanding. Because real power doesn't shout. It watches. It waits. And when it moves, it never misses. Weakness never arrives as an enemy. It slips in like a guest. It comes with a soft voice, promising rest after long days, validation after rejection, attention after loneliness. You let it in, thinking it understands you. You feed it excuses, let it sit in the quiet corners of your mind. But one morning you wake up, and it's no longer a guest. It's the owner. It decides what you do, what you avoid, who you trust. And by then, it's too late, because weakness doesn't steal your strength. It convinces you to give it away. You learn to crave comfort like oxygen. You scroll through noise when silence begins to hurt. You seek approval from people who would celebrate your fall if it made them feel taller. You dress your fears as logic and call it being careful. You don't take the shot because the timing isn't right. You say you're patient, but deep down, you're afraid. Afraid of failing, of standing alone, of becoming what they can no longer control. You don't see it, but every hesitation is a sacrifice to weakness. Every, maybe later, is a ritual offering to your own destruction. Weakness disguises itself as kindness. It tells you to forgive too easily. to understand people who feed on your energy, to keep showing up for those who'd never do the same for you. It paints surrender as peace and calls silence cowardice. But silence, when chosen, is power. Stillness is control. The world trains you to mistake submission for empathy because an obedient mind is predictable. They want you predictable. Predictable minds don't revolt. Predictable souls don't threaten empire. Predictable people die standing still, whispering, "At least I didn't make waves." You weren't born weak. You were taught to fear your own edge. They told you aggression was evil. That ruthlessness meant cruelty. That power corrupts. But what they never told you is that power reveals. It exposes the soft underbelly of others, their jealousy, their insecurity, their dependence. They called your confidence arrogance because it made them tremble. They told you to be humble because your potential made them feel small. Weakness is inherited through obedience. Strength is born through defiance. Every act of hesitation builds a cage. Every apology for existing tightens the bars. You don't need a prison made of walls. You build one in your head. You sit inside it, polishing the lock, decorating it with dreams you'll never chase. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right time, for a sign, for permission. But time is a predator. It's eating your chances one heartbeat at a time. And weakness is its silent accomplice. By the time you realize it, you'll be nothing but bones of potential buried under comfort. The cruel truth is this: weakness isn't destroyed by strength, it's replaced, rewired. You don't kill it by wishing, you starve it with action. You cut off its food supply, excuses, fears, validation. You stop bleeding empathy for those who drain you. You stop waiting for fairness. The world was never built to be fair. It was built to test who could adapt under pressure. You want freedom. Learn to be feared. Not because you harm, but because you no longer bend. The mind is your battlefield. Every lazy thought is an enemy scout. Every moment of self-pity, a gate left open. Weakness doesn't care if you cry. It only cares if you fight, and most people don't. They call it peace, but it's surrender wearing perfume. You've been living in a fog of softness, but the storm is coming, and in the storm, comfort is death. So sharpen your mind, harden your heart, because in this world, you either master your weakness, or it masters you. They built the trap slowly, one favor at a time, one smile at a time, one good job that made you stop questioning. You thought they were helping. You thought the world was soft if you stayed harmless, but they were studying you. Every weakness, every hesitation, every time you sought reassurance instead of truth, they marked it, because control doesn't begin with chains, it begins with comfort. And comfort was the poison you swallowed willing. You were taught to fear rejection more than regret, to choose belonging over freedom, to be liked instead of respected. They called it kindness, teamwork, humility, but it was obedience. They dressed your cage in approval and told you to stay inside for your own good. The mind trap doesn't rattle. It whispers. It doesn't break you with pain. It lulls you with safety. And when you finally wake up, you realize the walls were never around you. They were inside you. Every screen, every opinion, every soft distraction, they've all been training you to flinch. The dopamine hits, the fear of being misunderstood, the silent pressure to perform. They feed the machine that thrives on your predictability. You scroll, you nod, you agree, thinking you're free. But your emotions are on a leash. They know exactly what makes you doubt yourself, exactly when you'll fold. The world has turned you into a puppet that calls its strings connection. They want you tame. They want you exhausted from trying to be enough, because a tired mind is easier to steer. And that's the trick. You think you're making choices, but every option has been framed for you. Success that keeps you dependent, love that keeps you afraid, rewards that vanish when you start thinking for yourself. The more you chase peace, the further you drift from power. They've built a system that sells you calm while feeding you chains. But something inside you is starting to remember. You feel it when you're alone, an instinct older than fear, whispering that silence isn't weakness, clarity. You begin to see through smiles that don't reach the eyes, through voices that praise while measuring your pulse. You stop reacting. You start observing, and that's when the system panics, because nothing terrifies control more than awareness. You stop feeding the illusion, and the illusion begins to starve. They will call you cold. They will call you distant. They will say you've changed, and they'll be right. You've stopped being programmable. You've stopped giving them access to your emotions. You've started walking through the same world, but with armor made of quiet calculation. The trap is still there, but you no longer fit inside it. Every thought you guard, every silence you hold, it cuts the strings one by one. Now you see how predictable they are. The ones who gossip to test your loyalty, the ones who cry to manipulate, the ones who promise to help while extracting your secret. They're all playing the same ancient game: control through comfort, dominance through kindness. But the moment you detach, their spells dissolve. They can't curse what doesn't react. They can't drain what doesn't engage. You were never cursed with black magic. You were trained to believe you were powerless. The real hex was dependency. The antidote is detachment. You've learned that loyalty without awareness is self-destruction, and silence is no longer fear, it's precision. The mind trap still exists for those who sleep, but not for you, because now when they send control disguised as care, you return something far colder. You're indifferent. And that silence, that's the sound of the cage breaking. You stopped bleeding in public. That was the first act of war. No more explaining yourself to people who never cared. No more handing your truth to those who only wanted to twist it. You learned that silence is not surrender. It's the sound of a blade being drawn. The same ones who laughed when you broke now choke on the quiet. You move differently now, slower, colder. The old version of you begged to be understood. The new one watches, measures, waits. You don't chase energy anymore. You absorb it, weaponize it, and send it back twice as strong. The world expects noise from the desperate. They expect chaos from the weak. You give them neither. You understand the oldest law of survival: reveal nothing, expect everything. In ancient wars, the deadliest soldiers were the ones who didn't shout. They simply appeared, struck once, and vanished into fog. That's you now. You've learned the elegance of restraint, the power of invisibility. People fear what they can't read, and now no one can read you. You've become the silence they can't predict, the stillness that unnerves entire rooms. You realized patience is not passivity, it's pressure. Every second you wait, someone else reveals their hand. You don't rush anymore because you've seen what rushing costs. You've watched impulsive hearts bury themselves under their own noise. You've watched those who speak too soon lose everything they could have owned. You play the long game now. You strike when it's quiet enough to hear their heartbeat. You don't fight fair, you fight calculated. Every word is currency, every silence a trap. When they send chaos, you stay still. When they provoke, you smirk. When they gossip, you vanish. You are no longer food for their rituals. You are the curse that bites back. You learn that revenge isn't fire, it's frost. Slow, creeping, unrelenting. They think they cursed you, but curses only stick to the weak. You turned theirs into armor. You became the mirror that reflects every dark wish back at its source. The magic they sent was nothing but noise, and you made silence the loudest scream. You walk through rooms differently now. You used to announce yourself. Now your presence alone makes air tighten. You say little, but when you do, it lands like prophecy. There's a strange divinity in your calm, a warning hidden in your stillness. They don't know what you're thinking, and that terrifies them, because power isn't loud. It's measured breathing in a storm. It's an unblinking stare when everyone else looks away. You've become that storm in human form, disciplined, patient, unpredictable. Every betrayal taught you something precision could never teach. Every scar rewired your instincts. You now see strategy in suffering, advantage in delay, victory in quiet. They expected you to collapse. Instead, you studied the collapse. You learned how to build from ruins, how to become the architecture of your own survival. You became unreactive, not because you stopped feeling, but because you learned that reaction is currency, and you're done spending it on fools. There's no announcement when you rise, no warning before you strike. You've grown beyond the need to prove anything. The war is not outside, it's within. You don't chase peace anymore, you control it. You don't seek validation, you weaponize indifference. The ones who once whispered spells against you now whisper your name like superstition. They sense it, the shift in your energy, the shadow that walks with you. You are no longer prey. You are the quiet retribution they never saw coming. They broke you once. You remember it like a wound that never closes. Voices that mocked you, doors that shut, eyes that looked away when you needed them most. Every betrayal was a small death, a whisper that told you you'd never rise again. But here's the secret they never told you. Pain was never punishment, it was training. Every heartbreak, every humiliation, every night you couldn't sleep was a ritual, an ancient initiation into power. You were being stripped, refined, burned alive by truth until only steel remained. They sent black magic, jealousy, rejection, doubt, and you took it all. You swallowed poison and turned it into medicine. You stopped asking, why me? And started asking, what now? Because you learned that the gods don't favor the comfortable. They favor the ones who endure. You learned that agony has a language, and once you speak it, you can command storms. You realized that no enemy can curse you harder than life already has. And suddenly, you weren't scared anymore. You were dangerous. Pain became your compass. Every ache pointed toward something worth becoming. You stopped begging for peace and started preparing for war. The hands that trembled before now build without shaking. The voice that once cracked under pressure now cuts through silence like a blade. You stopped defending your past and started dissecting it, studying every scar like a map of your evolution. Every loss had coordinates. Every betrayal left a direction. You followed them one by one until you found yourself feral, focused, untouchable. You used to crave validation. Now you crave precision. You used to cry when people left. Now you thank them for making room. Pain showed you who was real. Pain showed you who was weak. Pain showed you that healing isn't soft, it's strategic. You didn't recover by forgiving them. You recovered by outgrowing them. You didn't move on. You moved higher. They threw curses. You built thrones. They spread rumors. You built silence so heavy it crushed their names. When they mocked your downfall, you were silent. When they celebrated your absence, you were learning. They thought your stillness was defeat, but stillness was your reload. You learned to wait like a wolf in tall grass, motionless, invisible, inevitable. The longer they doubted you, the sharper you became. The more they ignored you, the darker your hunger grew. And one day they'll realize the black magic didn't destroy you. It refined you into something that doesn't break anymore. Now you understand that pain doesn't end, it evolves. It becomes instinct. It becomes discipline. It becomes power. You learn to use it like fire, never to burn aimlessly, but to forge purpose. You no longer run from it, you wear it. You no longer fear it, you command it. Every memory that once hurt now sharpens you. Every tear that fell now waters the battlefield where you stand. Pain was never the enemy, it was your maker. And now, when they send you darkness, you smile, because you don't resist it anymore, you redirect it. You mirror it back, twice as strong. You've become the reflection they can't manipulate. You've become the consequence of their intention. You've become the kind of silence that terrifies the wicked and comforts the powerful. They sent black magic, but you don't curse back. You calculate. You don't seek revenge, you embody it. And in that quiet storm behind your eyes, they finally see it. Pain didn't end you. It crowned you. You don't chase power anymore. You wear it like a shadow. Once you spoke too much, explained too much, showed your teeth before you had the bite to back it up. Now silence is your armor and patience is your ambush. You move differently, measured, deliberate, unreadable. People can feel it. The air changes when you enter a room. The weak look for comfort in noise. The strong wait for the right silence. That's when control shifts quietly, invisibly, toward the one who watches instead of reacts. You used to fight battles that didn't matter, reacting to every insult, defending every wound. But predators don't defend, they stalk. You learn that power isn't found in motion, it's hidden in stillness. Every pause, every stare, every word you don't say, it all unnerves them. You became the ghost of your former self, stripped of apology, born again in precision. Now you speak only when it burns. You act only when it cuts. Every step is strategy. Every breath is calculation. You've studied them, the talkers, the manipulators, the desperate clingers to illusion. They can't stand not being read, so you became unreadable. You let them believe they've outsmarted you, that you've gone soft, distracted, comfortable. They laugh in your silence, and then you strike, not with anger, but inevitability. The hunter doesn't need to roar when the trap already closed 3 steps ago. Your power is no longer loud. It's surgical, psychological, final. There's a calm that comes with danger once you've embraced it. You don't flinch at betrayal anymore. You expect it, you dissect it, you use it. Their attacks are signals, not threats. When they reach for your weakness, you hand them a mirror. You've learned that every enemy reveals their fear the moment they try to harm you. That's when you see it, the trembling behind their confidence, the desperation behind their cruelty. You smile, not out of joy, but recognition. You've seen this before. You've survived it before. You became the quiet storm, the one that doesn't announce itself, but changes everything when it arrives. The more they push, the deeper you root. The louder they shout, the more still you become. You realize the deadliest weapon isn't rage, it's restraint. You let them underestimate you. You let them talk. Because the wolf that moves last eats first. Now you walk through the world like a myth they can't quite name. You no longer chase closure, validation, or revenge. You don't need their apology. You became the consequence. Your silence unsettles because it reflects what they fear most, their own weakness. They sense the shift but can't define it. That's power, when they can't trace the source but they feel the gravity. You're not cold, you're composed. You're not cruel. You're precise. Every move now has weight, intention, meaning. You've replaced reaction with observation, emotion with direction, impulse with design. They can't find your tells anymore because you've erased them. You became the architect of every outcome, seen and unseen. There's no ceremony to this transformation, no applause, and no light breaking through clouds. Only silence and the knowledge that you've crossed a line that no one else even saw. You used to fear becoming heartless. Now you understand. Heartless isn't empty, it's disciplined. The fire still burns, it just doesn't need witnesses. They sent chaos, you sent back calculation. They sent betrayal, you sent back indifference. They sent black magic, you sent it back twice as strong by becoming the one thing no spell can touch, a mind that hunts in silence. The war is over, but your silence is louder than the gunfire that once filled your mind. You don't chase revenge anymore because power doesn't chase, it waits, watches, calculates. You've learned that true dominance isn't noise, it's restraint. The world still speaks in chaos, but you've gone mute. And in that silence, everything bends toward you. The ones who once mocked your discipline now whisper your name like a warning. You no longer need to raise your voice, your presence does it for you. Once, they threw their darkness at you, fear, envy, doubt, hoping you'd break. You didn't. You swallowed it, digested it, and turned it into something lethal. Every curse they sent only carved your edges sharper. Every betrayal built another layer of armor. You didn't return their hatred. You refined it. You learned the oldest truth: the weak will never understand. Energy doesn't disappear, it transforms. Their black magic was never destroyed. It just found a new owner, you. There was a time you begged the world to understand you. Now you hope it never does. Understanding is access, and access is weakness. You've seen how the loudest ones reveal themselves first, how sympathy drains focus, how validation chains you to mediocrity. You walk through rooms like a ghost, unreadable, untouchable, unpredictable. The same people who used to underestimate you now hesitate before speaking your name, as if it might summon something they can't control. Pain doesn't visit you anymore. It obeys. It used to knock, now it waits for permission. You weaponized it, turned agony into awareness, fear into foresight. The storms that once tore you apart now circle around you, confused, powerless. You've become the eye of the hurricane, still, silent, centered, while everything else spins itself to death. You don't fight the chaos, you let it exhaust itself. That's strategy, not peace. That's power disguised as calm. When you stopped explaining yourself, the world panicked. When you stopped reacting, they called you cold. They were right. Warmth is for the Na'vi, ice preserves. Your empathy didn't die, it evolved. You no longer waste it on parasites. You keep it sharp, hidden, ready for the few who earn it. You've become the paradox, merciless yet moral, calm yet catastrophic. Every move you make now feels ancient, deliberate, inevitable. You've stepped into the realm where predators bow and kings keep their distance. You used to want light. Now you understand shadow. Light exposes you, shadow protects you. Power doesn't shine, it absorbs. And in that absorption, you've become untouchable. You've stopped looking for fairness. Fairness is a myth sold to keep warriors soft. Life is not about justice, it's about leverage. You've learned to trade pain for precision, patience for control. You wait in the dark not because you're lost, but because darkness is your camouflage. They can't curse you anymore. Their spells bounce back because your mind became a mirror, cold, reflective, deadly. Every attack reveals its sender. Every lie exposes its maker. That's the gift of silence. It doesn't defend, it condemns. You've transcended survival. You've become strategy itself, the hunter who doesn't chase, the blade that doesn't flash, the storm that doesn't warn. Now you walk with the calm of someone who's seen death and made it kneel. You don't wish anyone harm, but you never forget the map of betrayal. You move like smoke there, then gone. You are not healed, you are honed. You are not kind, you are controlled. They sent black magic, you sent it back twice as strong. Comfort kills. Silence wins, weakness bleeds. Which one are you?